Hello everyone, I'm Chris Mozillo Sandboxson, and today I'll be talking about open world video games. Nearly every game and its mum has decided to aim for this open world experience, whether it be more well-established older franchises that have dabbled every now and then in this open world concept but have recently gone all in on open world games, or perhaps less established ones that have gone open world because, I mean, it's a Ubisoft game and they're more or less the exact same game every single time. Or Mass Effect Andromeda, because seriously, why wouldn't you go for an open world game? There's nothing I have particularly against open world games in of themselves. If they're done well, they can be a wonderful experience where you can find yourself lost, burrowed away in a little corner of the map, spending hours and hours of your life here, completely far away from the main event and main quest chain. Or it can just be a nice, refreshing experience where the game kind of just gives you the reins and you can just do whatever the heck you want, like in Minecraft. Instead, my main issue comes from the oversaturation of lazy open world games where basically it's a large rectangular map where the game just slaps the player on the butt and tells him to go out and enjoy. Go collect the hundreds of little pieces on the map, and pretend that's gameplay. An open world game used to refer to a game that had a world map for the player to run along and go from place to place on. This was because if you're on a large globe-trotting adventure, it'd be a pain in the arse to try and have to walk from the South Pole to the North Pole just by foot in real time. So instead you've got large periods of land where you can walk coast to coast in a matter of seconds. The game is still ultimately linear, although it may have some side locations hidden around the map, but it was just a means of speeding things up a little bit. In modern iterations of open world games though, the map takes place in a much smaller area, despite being significantly larger. That distance of coast to coast that you could walk in seconds in a previous game is now the entire map and takes you forever to run across open fields, because they've decided to go for a one-to-one scale of the location. Your epic quest is no longer one that involves running around the entire globe. Instead, it's one that primarily revolves around walking through fields.
So much walking.
I'm outside now and it's also really windy, but I'm hopefully going to be proving a point. Maybe. One of the big issues with open world games is that distances seem artificially inflated to kind of give this sense that you're doing something. You might have a quest to go talk to Jim over there, and then you've just got to run over there. Jesus Christ. What exhilarating gameplay! I need to be over there again. Now, you see, in more traditional games, you have a quest to go talk to Jim, and he'd just be, just over there. However, there'd be like a children's climbing frame in between you and him. Imagine it's a ruin or something. It's been a bit abandoned like a ruin. The point I'm trying to make though is that from the outside, this children's climbing frame may seem a little contrived, but when you're in the moment, it seems epic and involved. If not a little tedious. It was linear and smaller, but there was more to do than walking in a straight line and hitting A. I'm back indoors. That was enough outside for a lifetime. A lot of games make up this gameplay deficit with collectibles for the player to collect. If you've played an Assassin's Creed game, you might be very familiar with this, especially that of Assassin's Creed 4, which was the last one I played, and Jesus, it was absolutely crammed with bits and pieces to acquire. The gameplay isn't exactly structured in any way, shape or form. It just becomes a matter of switching off your brain and heading to a location on the map, maybe even fast travelling there for convenience, finding a shiny object and then rinse and repeat. This just continues on and on until you spent about 40 hours in the game, and I guess that's the game now. What did you achieve? I don't know, I got a load of blips from a map. It was wonderful. There are so many games that are sort of guilty of doing this sort of thing, You've got Horizon Zero Dawn and Breath of the Wild for recent stuff. Nearly every single Ubisoft game is that whole thing incarnate, that is their stick. I rather cynically view this whole process as creating your large rectangular map and then getting a program to randomly disperse these blips and shrines and bits and pieces across the whole map and pretend that's gameplay. Sometimes they're viewed as exploratory aids because, you know, just because you've built this massive open world doesn't mean anyone's going to explore it. But do you know what's a better way of making people explore your world? Decently written quests of anything that involves some form of thought and structure? Maybe. The freedom of an open world can be rather fun for a while, but there's only so many hours I can put into a mindless rampage through any GTA game, and you know, there are thousands of paths to explore in Breath of the Wild, but eventually I'm just doing the same thing and getting the same items and the same combat. It can be like orienteering back in school. You're ultimately just walking around, bored out of your skull, but the odd bit of objective to tick off on your list every now and then just seemingly makes it all the worthwhile. Except even in an orienteering, you had more structure than most modern video games. My main case with open world games seems to be the overwhelming laziness that they seem to be approached with. If you look at something like The Witcher 3 or Fallout 4, they're games with massive open worlds, but they actually try and get you to engage with the world itself. Every bit of exploration you do leads to maybe a new quest or new characters that, you know, then lead to new locations. The game isn't the open world, it just takes place in an open world. And that is an important factor. Final Fantasy 15 and Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild both tried to have these sort of quests to drive the player to do something and give them a bit of agency. But these quests were kinda dull, because they mostly involved collecting 10 frogs or going to a random location on the map and killing a couple of monsters. Nothing too outlandish, and by the time you return, the character just ends the quest there and you're done. You didn't gain anything, nothing branched out from it. Due to the simplicity of these sort of quests, they don't become engaging characters, they just become exclamation points for you to interact with and to aimlessly follow. It's hard to make structured gameplay in an open world, I get that. The player can approach the objective from any direction on the map, not just that of the quest giver. This problem arose in Final Fantasy 15, where you may have been told to go take down a military compound, but if you approached it from the wrong direction, you found yourself walking along the outskirts of it, just looking at a concrete wall, trying to find the door to it. You either have to start to try and plan around the idea that the player is going to approach from literally any direction, which can work but can also lead to things being slightly less memorable, or go for the old classic cave method and have an entrance on a map which then sort of goes below the open world map and is its almost entirely separate thing, which can be kind of shitty if it doesn't feel like it's a part of the world, but at the same time, if it's done well, can work incredibly well, like Horizon Zero Dawn. In a lot of these open world games, I'm sure if you cut out the large empty expanses and just stapled the bits of actual gameplay together, you'd have a pretty decent game for the most part, maybe with a little bit of polishing, and it'd be one that wasn't padded out with sand, because sandbox. Anyway, thanks, and look, there's more in the description maybe because I wrote some extra words on it on my blog thing. Laters.